So, all right. So, scrub run. Here we go. Quite a bit louder than I was expecting right off the bat there. So that's one of the reasons you want to use laser, is to uncover bees, but that's kind of a more advanced scoring thing in this game. Yeah, definitely use the laser. Although if you're using type A shot, then technically the shot is ever so slightly more powerful than the laser, but not enough for it to be a significant difference. Well, you know, for the most part, I'm seeing some pretty good stuff so far. You're not making big flailing motions. You're kind of trying to maintain control. You're trying to kind of steer the bullets around the screen, and that's exactly what you want to be doing. In general, you don't want to be making large sweeping motions, and that's kind of a common beginner mistake, is just moving all across the screen and flailing back and forth. You're generally seeming pretty controlled. Let's see how you handle the boss here. Again, laser would definitely help with that precision. Yeah, I mean, you're doing good tap dodges here. Well, if you're talking about the ground medals in DDP, the ground medals are worth very, very little in the grand scheme of things. Most of your score in DDP comes from chaining. And to do that, you need to laser. And you need to develop very specific, kind of pre-planned, memorized routes through the stages. Basically, the idea is you want to kill enemies within a quarter second of each other, and that's what that 26 hit, 25 hit, 50 hit gauge in the corner of the screen is. That's your current chain. The idea is that when you get to a high enough level of play, you can chain the entire level continuously without it ever dropping, and that's how you actually score in the game. So, right there, what was happening, it looks almost like you just didn't see the bullets converging there. But again, for the most part, I mean, I was really impressed with what I saw there. You have some really kind of decent fundamentals. Yeah, I mean, you're making larger sweeping motions more than you should be, probably, but, like, compared to most people who are just starting to play shooting games, you're doing really, really good. Yeah, I mean, and you're kind of instinctively going to one side of the screen, letting enemies shoot over there, and then moving over to the other. That's called bullet herding, and that's again a very important kind of fundamental technique. So that's pretty good. That, I mean, I'm already seeing that here. Okay, there's something I just noticed. Generally speaking, you do not want to go for power-ups. You want to let them come to you. The power-up will not make a big difference in terms of your ability to survive at that specific moment in time. And 9 times out of 10, going for it puts you at much greater risk than simply letting it fall back. Now, obviously, there are plenty of circumstances where that's not true. If the screen is completely devoid of bullets, then go for it. But if you're in a situation where you have the choice between advancing to try and get a power-up, or staying back or in your current position and maintaining whatever dodge you're doing, always choose the safer staying back. And especially with Dodonpachi games, it's actually critically important when you pick up power-ups, because they can break your chain if you're lasering to maintain the chain on a larger enemy. But that's a little bit more complicated, I won't go into that. The general idea, though, do not compromise your safety at this moment based on the fact that you think that getting a power-up will keep you safer in the future. If you just wait a couple seconds, it'll bounce around the screen, come straight back to you. That's not always going to be true, and especially in some older shooting games, power-ups will fall off the screen and you won't be able to get them. So there are some games where you have to aggressively pursue them, but for the most part, especially in cave games, you should be letting them come to you rather than trying to get them. Anyone in chat want to disagree with me there? Yeah, I agree with Aquas. Once you start using the laser to control your motion, you're going to see a lot of improvement. Even though right now you understand kind of the idea of tap dodging, one of the fundamental aspects of it is you want to move as little as possible between bullets, bullet volleys, and obviously you're not moving as little as possible if you're not focused. Yeah, you want to grab power-ups actively in Touhou, but it's a little bit different in Touhou because you can actually grab all items on the screen at once if you move above a certain line. Depending on the game, you might have to be at full power already to do that, but in many of the later games you don't. Touhou's different though. Like I said, there are some games where stuff will, fall off the game where you do want to pursue it aggressively. So, yeah. Yeah, lasering, laser bombing are going to be huge. So. Yeah, it looks like you're choosing a shot for all of these runs. So with DDP, you'll find that the shot type has a strengthened shot compared to the laser type, but it tends to move a little bit slower. And the laser type has a strengthened laser compared to its shot, but tends to move a little bit faster. Generally speaking, the laser type is, I think in DDP, the laser type is superior. I know in DOJ, the laser types are superior, or XE is superior, because she strengthens both. But, yeah, see right there, you almost died because you went for that power-up. You just barely pulled down before the mid-boss became collidable. You can see your shots are hitting him just as you're pulling below, which means that you were literally just frames away from being annihilated there when he decided to become collidable. So again, it's one of those cases where you don't want to be aggressively chasing those power-ups. You don't need to try a different ship per se. Although I mean you should try all of the ships and find what's comfortable for you. People will say things like, "Oh, this ship type is better for scoring. This is the best ship. This is the ship you should use if you're going to play this game." 9 times out of 10, you can ignore that stuff. Especially if you're not going for a high score or a world record or anything like that. You can just play whatever ship type you want. Choose what's comfortable for you. That's what's going to do the best in your runs, always. And like I said, the difference is if you're chasing a high score or going for a world record or whatever, in which case there can be very legitimate differences in scoring capability between different ships. But until you get to that point, there's absolutely no reason to pick one ship over another. Play with all possible combinations, find something that you like, and then stick with it for a while. And if you find that you're not liking it after a bit, then change it up. Well, that was interesting. I'm assuming that was some kind of error with the INP, or you just stopped playing there, or let me see what's going on. It looks like it restarts like right here. Okay, there we go. So I mean, you're doing good here with hurting the bullets from these large brown tanks off to the edges of the screen so that you can move comfortably. But when you start using laser, you'll notice that they not only is it easier to move more precisely to avoid them, but they go down quicker as well. So okay, so this section seems to be giving you a lot of trouble. Nice taps here. Nicely done. So in that case, I really think that the issue was just that you're not using laser. I mean, if you're using laser, you can make much finer taps, which will keep the boss, you know, in your damage zone for longer. That mid boss tank thing in your damage zone of your laser for much longer, so he'll go down quicker since you'll be moving more slowly. It's kind of hard to explain, but just try it and you'll get it. Yeah, and like Aquas was saying, you know, if you feel like you don't know how to deal with this pattern yet, there's nothing to be ashamed of just bombing there. You know, bombing at patterns that you know you can't handle is often a good way to get to play further points in the game. And then once you feel like, okay, I think I can try to learn this, you can come back and you can try to learn the pattern that you were struggling with before. Some of my clears have been done exactly that way. Diojo, for example, there's a couple places in that game where even though I know I can dodge a pattern, I'll sometimes still bomb there anyway because I just don't want to have to deal with it. Yeah, what Kempot says, you're really not using a very good ship shot combination. So do play around with the other ship types and use both the shot and the laser, and it'll make a big difference in how it controls. You'll notice when you use the laser with this ship, it will move incredibly slowly. And you'll probably have a lot of issues with that, so. The other thing that I like that I'm seeing here is that you seem to be very comfortable with, you know, the concept of your hitbox being substantially smaller than your ship. Which, I mean, since you played Touhou before, makes sense. So, a lot of players when they first start out, if they're trying to play a bullet hell like this, you know, you'll see them trying to dodge with the whole ship sprite, and it's obviously you don't need to do that. You just need to move enough to get that hitbox out of the way. So, okay. Personally, I play AL in all of the Dodonpachi games except Daifukatsu because Daifukatsu. So, a lot of people recommend C-Shot for Dodonpachi as well. It looks like Boost is recommending that here. So, yeah. He thought it was Karega. Yeah, that's how it is. I see. I get it. Actually, in DOJ White, I use AL usually. In DOJ Black, I use Xe. But DOJ White, I use Linyan. So, alright, are we back to the first one? I think we are. Yeah, I think we are. Okay, well, for the most part, like I said, what happened to the video? Oh, I scrolled down, that's what. Whoops. Yeah, for the most part, I mean, really, I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing there. I mean, it seems like you have a lot of the basics there. So, I think that you're gonna find that you make progress quite quickly, especially since you are asking for input about how you play, since you are watching replays, since you are watching streams. I mean, you're really kind of being proactive about understanding why people are playing the way they're playing, and that's really the most important thing. Not just knowing what to do, but knowing why to do it. Like, anyone could watch a super play and get a world record. It takes a completely different kind of commitment to watch a super play, break it down, understand exactly why he's doing what he's doing at any given point, and then get that world record. It's just a much different way of approaching the genre, and I think that it's a much better way of dealing with it, personally. Because if you know what to do, but you don't know why, you're not really learning anything. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have the fundamentals down, and you're only going to see improvements from here on. So, one thing that you may or may not struggle with as you start getting a little bit more proficient with the game is handling cutbacks, which is where you have a stream of bullets that you've herded onto one edge of the screen with tapping, and then you have to cut back through that stream in order to get to the other side in order to continue dodging. That's something that a lot of players struggle with, and it can be very situational, so it's hard to give general advice. But one thing that I'm noticing here is, since you have kind of these larger taps, these less controlled motions, a couple times in this you did die trying to cut back. So, like I said, we'll see how that develops. If you do find that you're struggling with that, I can't really give much advice for it, except just kind of visualize how the bullets are moving and how they're following your motion, and learn to create those gaps with how you're moving. So, have you read Prometheus's Guide? The full extent of the jam? If not, it's an excellent resource, and I'd highly recommend it. It's one of the things that helped me when I was starting to learn to play shooting games on a kind of a higher level. So, yeah. Remember to move up and down as well as left and right. It doesn't seem like you're having that much of a problem with that right now. I mean, I see you moving around the screen quite a bit, but a lot of players, when they're just starting out, will. Campop doesn't like the guide. A lot of players, when they're just starting out, you'll see them move very one-dimensionally. Well, Bear's Guide is excellent, but it's a translation of a very dense document by a Japanese player. At least that's my understanding. And the few times that I've read it, I mean, it has some amazing stuff in it, and Bear's a great player, as is Prometheus for that matter. But it has some amazing stuff in it, but I think that it's a little bit higher level than Prometheus's Guide. I think Prometheus's Guide is much more approachable from a beginner perspective, whereas Bear's is kind of, okay, now you know what the basics are, now study up. That's kind of my stance on it, but yeah, a lot of players, when they first start out, they play very one-dimensionally. They'll move just left and right, or they'll move just, along the bottom edge of the screen, or they'll move just up and down and try to dodge things that way. It's not good. You want to move all around. You're going to have to play aggressively in some games. You're going to have to get way up the screen. You're going to have to move way down the screen. You know, sometimes you're going to have to be circling things. You're going to have to sit directly on top of bosses. The one thing that you have to be aware of is that you can use the entire screen, and you should. Obviously, you should do it within reason. Don't go sit up on the top edge of the screen when there's enemies coming down, because you'll probably die unless you know where they're coming from. But definitely, you know, make use of that two-dimensional movement capability. It's there for a reason. And moving diagonally often slows down how fast you move in the horizontal or vertical directions. So you can use that to make more precise dodges. Say, for example, that you need to make a precise horizontal movement, but if you just tap sideways, you're going to overshoot it. Then tap diagonally down and sideways, and you'll move less in that horizontal direction, but you'll also move vertically, so you'll need to compensate for that. But I mean, you know, using that two-dimensional movement capability is a huge element, and like I said, I don't think you have problems with that, but it's just always something to keep in mind. So, Problems Guide will encourage save state, and I'm actually with Kempop here in that I don't encourage save state abuse. I don't think there's a problem with playing with save states, provided that you use them the same way you would a practice mode in a port. Basically, you play stage by stage. But, I mean, using a save state to practice the same section of a game over and over and over and over and over again, on the one hand, it makes you great at that section. On the other, it really will burn you out very quickly. But I think Problems Guide does a great job of staying approachable and, you know, teaching the basics. It talks about, you know, not just what a shooting game is, but it talks about how to practice. It talks about how to emulate. It talks about how to break down a route. It talks about basic dodging techniques. You know, how to look at a bullet pattern. It makes what I think is one of the best analogies that I've ever heard about shooting games, which is comparing them to a musician performing a musical piece. You know, when you get to a certain level of play with shooting games, you have kind of a what is the word I'm looking for? You have this kind of sheet music that you're trying to play to, right? But even though you know what you're supposed to be doing, there's always that struggle to execute it perfectly every time. And even though you have kind of you have the piece memorized and you know how to use your instrument, you still have that little bit of, you know, struggle between flawed execution and perfect execution. And I think as a metaphor for kind of the higher level mentality about how to approach shooting games, it's a phenomenal analogy. So, but yeah, I mean, as people have been telling you, don't just stick with one developer, move around. Play different games, play lots of different games. Try different stuff. If you get bored of one thing, try something completely different. If you get bored of Cave, try Rising. If you get bored of Rising, try Psycho. If you get bored of Psycho, go play the Raiden Fighters games. You know, I mean, just move all over the place. And don't be afraid to try out complete independent games. There's a lot of great stuff that's been produced in the development sub-forum on Shmups. There's a lot of really crap stuff in there too, but there's some legitimately great games. Kagara's 1-2 label, I personally quite enjoyed. There's something that just was released a day or so ago called Aero Chimera, which looks excellent, although it's probably going to be a little bit difficult for you, since even the novice mode looks like it'll be pretty challenging. But really just try to have fun with it, with the stage you're at right now. You know, keep in mind these kind of basic ideas. Yeah, Gustav's games. Oh, God. Yes. Just yes. That's all I'm gonna say. Try to have fun with it. You know, keep in mind these basic ideas. Use focus fire. Use all the different, you know, play around with the different ship types. Make sure that you're exploring the game to its fullest. Make sure you're not just getting a cursory impression of it and, you know, oh, I didn't like the first time that I played it on my first credit with the first ship that I tried, and I didn't even use the bomb or the auto fire. You know, don't make split judgments like that. Just give everything a little bit of time. If you don't like it, keep moving. If you don't like it, keep moving. And just kind of float around for a little bit. And once you find something that you like, and you know that you like, stick with it for a little while, and maybe try for 1cc. But I mean, for now, it seems like you have a great skill foundation already, and you're definitely doing kind of the right things, quote unquote, by kind of reaching out to the community the way you are. I love that you're keeping a blog. That's fantastic. I was actually going to do that for some of my own scores for a while. I was keeping kind of a personal score blog at Cave STG, and then the site went down and everything got erased, so that was no fun. But yeah, I mean, I love that you're kind of reaching out to the community like that, and that you're watching streams and you're asking for input. I mean, it's just great. I wish there would be more people who would do this. So there's kind of a famous case of a guy on the forum, Dr. Trouserplank, aka DTP, who continually complained about every single cave game he ever tried being impossible. Never provided any kind of documentation of how he played, never was willing to ask for direct feedback on what he was doing. I mean, it's just great that you're already in that place where you're willing to try it out, and you know, even though you think you suck, go ahead and put yourself out there, and stuff is happening. That's great. So anything else that I kind of should mention before I wrap it up here, or I think I should close it up pretty shortly because my roommate's got to go to sleep. So, thank you guys for watching. Sorry I was kind of struggling with Escalade 2 there for a bit. I'm really inconsistent with this game, and it's kind of bugging me. I mean, the only other cave game where I'm really this inconsistent is Futari. And I don't like Futari as a result of that, even though it has some very good patterns, so... But yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope I was able to provide some good commentary here. I'm going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube if you ever want to come back and take a look. I'll try to make a highlight of just this section. So, yeah, I mean, thanks for kind of having this idea. I mean, that's great that you suggested that we do this. It was pretty great. So, yeah. All right. I gotta go. I'll talk to you all later. Thinking I might stream Ybarra tomorrow. Not sure when I'll start, but I mean, recently I've been streaming from about 8 to midnight, so I might try to keep that up. And I might have a 2DX stream earlier in the day, like maybe at 2 or 3 or something. So, but we'll see what happens. I would like to stream Ybarra with my next major stream though. So, with that said, thank you guys, and